Nice, okay. Now, this is from The Guardian. Why are French soldiers in the Sahel? Protesters have announced. Macron's autocratic attitude towards dissent in countries such as Niger and Mali is only stoking anti-French sentiment. Large protests have taken place in Bamako, the capital of Mali, demanding that French troops leave the country. We marched for them to leave, and now they send 600 more. One blogger in Mali wrote in response to the news that more French soldiers were being deployed to the Sahel. In total, roughly 5,100 troops are deployed in Mali, as well as across Chad, Niger, Mauritania, and Burkina Faso. Public opposition to French military intervention in the Sahel, seen as undermining national sovereignty, has been growing over the last year across Francophone Africa. The popular Cameroonian musician General Valsero recently declared the presence of the French army is an insult. French troops have been in the region on and off since they occupied it in the 19th century, seeking to secure French access to labor and resources. They have remained and returned since independence. The French launched Operation Serval in 2013 in response to gains made by insurgent groups in the north of Mali. Since then, instability has spread, and different states in the region are dealing with repeated attacks and insurgencies from a range of groups, some linked to Al Qaeda and Islamic State. Deep-rooted and complex tensions are driving the insurgencies. Livelihoods are under attack, traffic networks manipulated by political and business elites, the failure of nation-states to provide economic and social security for its citizens. The climate crisis and associated land degradation are major factors. In this context, President Macron says the French Operation Barkhane, which replaced Serval in 2014, exists in the name of the collective security of the Sahel and the wider world. But France still has significant commercial and political interests in the region. The state-owned energy company Orano gets a large proportion of its uranium from Niger. Total has oil fields in Mali. The French have a military base in Chad. When Macron visited in 2018, he brought enough champagne for 1,300 troops. Despite years of fighting, insecurity, and attacks on civilians continue, 4,000 deaths were reported last year alone. Because obviously their job is not there to protect people, their job is to secure the resources. Sahelian public resistance to the French military presence is a problem for Macron's government. Is under rising pressure at home because of French casualties in the region. As a result, the presidents of Sahel countries came under orders from Macron to sort out anti-French sentiment. Speaking after the NATO summit in London last December, Macron put on a stern, somewhat exasperated tone. Do they want us to be there? Do they need us? He asked. To get an answer, Macron called a summit in early January in Pau, a town in the southwest of France. On Burkina television, the president of Burkina Faso, Marc Kabore, criticized the tone of this summons. Nevertheless, he later joined the presidents of Niger, Mali, Mauritania, and Chad in releasing a joint statement confirming that yes, they wanted France to say. This sounds like a plantation master calling his slaves and saying, "You all like me? Get over here and tell me all you like me, or else." In making French military presence apparently conditional on a public show of allegiance, Macron wants to be seen as committed to democratic process in Africa. Famously at a landmark speech at the University of Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso in 2017, he described himself as a president from the generation for whom the crimes of colonization are indisputable. Nobody disputed them. What people are asking is, when are they going to stop? He wasn't one to tell African countries what to do. And sure enough, here he is in 2020 asking African presidents what they want. But threatening foreign presidents to quell public debate and dissent at home is an autocratic gesture. Yes, he did tell people what to do. He said French African women are having too many kids and need to stop having them, as if it's any of his business. Members of the public have responded, "We are acting legally and democratically to express our disagreement against France's policy," said one organizer in Mali, denying that protesters were to be treated as rebels or disturbers of the peace. "We need to free ourselves from this," said Valsero. Well, this is typical. We're here to spread democracy, fraternity, liberty, equality, as long as you don't go against our interests. It's no surprise that some pushback, albeit fleeting and only directed at a domestic audience, came from Burkina Faso. Kabore is facing elections later this year in a country where in 2014, after 27 years in power, popular struggle dislodged Blaise Compaoré, a staunch ally of the US and France. Kabore is not in a position to completely ignore his electorate, even the French president tells him to. In Niger, President Mahamadou Issoufou played down the significance of those protesting against the French military in his country. Those demonstrating in the streets are a tiny minority, he said in an interview in December last year. The insouciance was at odds with his authorities' prohibition of protest in the Niger capital, Niamey, the week before. The French have reported Issoufou, and in turn have supported Issoufou, and in turn gives the French army free rein. French drones take off from Niamey to monitor Islamist movements in Sahel. Last February, French forces attacked soldiers opposed to the Chad president Idriss Deby. As the political scientist Mariel Debo has pointed out, these soldiers were no cuddly Democrats, but bombing the regime's opponents fall squarely outside the stated objectives of Operation Barkhane. It seems to serve only to shore up the position of Deby, who himself took power by force in 1990 with French support. Seen this way, the presence of French soldiers in the Sahel has more to do with securing French interests than achieving security for the general public. There's also a relationship between foreign policy and what's going on in mainland France. In Bamako, in January, demonstrators called for French troops to leave behind the French flag, and a man announced bigger call for the abolition of the camps in Calais. In France, members of the Chad diaspora campaign against France interference have been involved in organizing with the Gillette Nours movement mobilizing against the exploitation of the undocumented migrants in which the French economy depends. At the PAO summit, a collective associated with the Gillette Nours La Chapelle Debout called a protest against the theatrics of the Macron summit. We demand the departure of French troops, one member wrote. Colonization is over. It's outrageous to say for France to say it's there to fix any of the problems. It is the number one cause of all of Francophone Africa's problems and the larger amount of Africa's problems, because it extorts $500 billion from African countries, from 14 of them, which is about, I think, a third of Africa's nations, every year. And if they don't, they will overthrow the leaders of those nations and possibly invade. So, as I say before, boycott France, boycott the car companies, Renault, Peugeot, boycott Evian, Volvic, and anything made in France. Do not take holidays in France. Anyway, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. I'll leave this article in the description. If you would like to support the channel, I'll leave my GoFundMe there as well. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'll leave that there as well. Peace.